Hi, my name is Maria O'Connell, and this is my case brief for MPTX516. The case I chose was Ray v. Allergan from 2012. And the facts of the case are that the plaintiff, Ray, filed an action against the defendant, Allergan, after receiving 3 injections of Botox in 2007 for a movement disorder in his right hand. And the plaintiff alleged to have sustained a severe reaction to the Botox that required hospitalization and left him disabled. The initial complaint included 6 claims, but the court dismissed all of those except for one, which was the negligent failure to warn claim. And at the end of the trial, the jury returned a verdict in favor of Ray, awarding him $12 million in compensatory damages and $200 million in punitive damages. So Allergan then filed a motion for a new trial, which is the basis for this specific case. So here I want to focus just on Allergan's reasons for requesting that new trial, as well as the facts that were critical in the court's decision to grant a new trial. So from the beginning of the case, the plaintiff claimed that Allergan should have used what is called a black box warning on the label to alert healthcare providers of the risk to the central nervous system. So the court concluded that, first of all, number one, Allergan could not have used a black box warning without prior FDA approval, but that 2, Allergan could have gone to FDA to request the permission to use that black box warning. So during closing arguments directed at the jury, the plaintiff's lawyers decided to only argue that Allergan should have issued the black box warning, but they chose not to mention anything about needing prior FDA approval. So during the closing arguments, the plaintiff's lawyers also used some hand gestures that that made reference to the black box warning. And at the time, the court had overruled Allergan's objection to these gestures because they had not seen them until they reviewed a courtroom security videotape and then saw the plaintiff's lawyers using those gestures. So the claims made both in the closing arguments along with the gestures of the black box were the main reasons for Allergan's new trial motion. And based on these points, Allergan asked the court whether a new trial would be granted. So the court ruled that the result of the plaintiff's improper closing arguments, lack of instruction to the jury, all of this was prejudice to Allergan's right to have the warning issue decided within the confines of the applicable FDA regulations. Specifically, the plaintiff's lawyers were entitled to argue that a warning should have been given, but they were not entitled to say that it should have been a black box warning or where it should have been placed on the product. Therefore, a new trial was granted. So, in summary, this was a failure to warn case in which the jury was allowed to assess the claim in an incorrect way. So, the combination of certain evidence admitted, the improper closing arguments, misleading instruction to the jury, all of this resulted in prejudice to Allergan's right to have this issue decided within the confines of the applicable FDA regulations. So based on these reasons, the defendant's motion for a new trial was granted. And then after doing some additional research, I found that the case was later settled for a confidential amount. So definition of 3 new terms from this case. The first one is contemporaneous objection. This refers to a principle that proper and timely objection to admission of evidence must be made at trial stage if the issue of admissibility is to be considered on appeal. The second term is punitive damages. This refers to a monetary award ordered by the court to be paid by a defendant to the plaintiff in a civil lawsuit. The third definition is supremacy clause. It establishes that the federal constitution and federal law in general takes precedent over state laws and state constitutions. Thank you.